What's up, everybody? This is Scott Melker, and you're listening to the Wolf of Wall Street's podcast, where 2 times every single week I talk to your favorite personalities in Bitcoin, finance, art, music, sports, politics, basically anyone with an interesting story to tell. Now, this show is powered by ROUNDLYX Group, a media company that has a network of over 20 podcasts. You can check them out at blockworksgroup.io. Now, if you like the podcast, you follow me on Twitter, then you got to definitely check me out at my website. That's the hub for everything that I do, including my free newsletter you can sign up for. That's at thewolfofallstreets.io. Now, on to what's more important. That's today's guest, who is a well-known British rapper, author, podcaster, fitness expert. Clearly, you can't put this dude in a box. He's got a list of hit singles and hot takes. Zuby's rise to fame has led to him appearing as a guest on some of the media's largest shows, notably like Joe Rogan. His unique social media personality and style of music have attracted both a strong fan base, but also a relentless mob ready to attack anything he has to say. So Zuby, man, thank you so much for being here today.
Happy to be here, Scott. It's a pleasure, man.
So as I touched on, I love following you on Twitter because you're one of the few people who actually says what they feel and is unapologetic about it. I find that to be a rare thing, especially in 2020. So first, I got to say that I really appreciate that. And I want to get to the core of why you are that way and how you basically have the balls to be as such. So I know like you grew up in Saudi Arabia, you ended up in England. Could you give a bit of your backstory, like kind of how you became who you are?
Yeah, sure thing. So I was born in the UK, in England, to be more specific. When I was a baby, my family moved to Saudi Arabia. So my family background is originally from Nigeria. Both of my parents are originally Nigerian. So I lived in Saudi Arabia for 19 years. I went to school there from preschool all the way up until 5th grade. And then after that, I went to the UK. I went to a boarding school in the UK for secondary school. Did really well in the UK, got top marks in all my exams. I got accepted to Oxford University. I went there and studied computer science for 3 years, graduated. When I was in Oxford, I actually started making music. So I wrote and released my first album, Commercial Underground, independently when I was in my second year of university. Then after that, I did my music full-time for 1 year. Then I moved to London and worked in the corporate world as a management consultant for 3 years, whilst juggling my music stuff on the side. And then in November 2011, I left that job. I became self-employed and became a full-time artist. So I've been doing my thing now independently for approaching 9 years now. It'll be 9 years in November. So it all started out with me just being a rapper. And then over time, it's sort of grown and expanded to all of those things that you mentioned at the beginning. So now I'm still a rapper. I still make music. I put out an album last year and a single a couple months ago. But I'm also now known as a podcaster. I've got my own podcast, Real Talk with Zuby. Wrote my first fitness book last year, Strong Advice. And I also do, coaching and a whole bunch of other stuff as well.
Well, Saudi Arabia is not exactly notorious for free thinking and for allowing people to, express themselves, especially obviously women. So how did you come out of, 19 years in Saudi Arabia with sort of this attitude towards life and, the thought that everybody should obviously be able to sort of speak their truth?
Well, it's kind of funny because there's stuff that you can say in Saudi Arabia very freely that you can't say in the UK. And then there's stuff you can say in the UK that you probably wouldn't want to express openly in Saudi Arabia. So, it's kind of a funny one to me because I don't even live in a country where you've truly got, people say you've got freedom of speech in the UK, but you don't really. And I'm not sure that, I think the US is the only country where you sort of have that like 100% legally. Actually, most countries around the world, pretty much every country except the US doesn't have that. The UK doesn't have it. Canada doesn't have it. No country in Europe has it, etc. And so it's kind of an interesting thing. Where I grew up in Saudi Arabia, of course, I grew up mainly in an expat community.
Of course.
So I'm very open about the fact that where I grew up and where I lived and my experience is going to be different to a Saudi national or for someone who's, depending on where you're from, what you're doing over there, who you are, etc., you're going to have a very different experience. I think that goes for every city, every country, every place in the world. And I think for somewhere like Saudi, that's probably even more the case. So I can't speak on behalf of everybody else who's lived there. I can only speak from my own experience and say, look, I understand that my experience is going to be different to another person's, and some people, you know, of all demographics will have positive views, some people have negative views, etc. But I don't think that is super unique to somewhere like Saudi Arabia in the way that people say it is. You know, I know people who think that America is like the worst country in the world and it's this horrible, oppressive hellhole. And then I know lots of people who think it's the best, most free country in the world. And I don't know, everyone just has really different views and experiences on all this stuff. So I just try to be honest and authentic with everything I do, everything I say, but also just be honest about the facts and say, this is my experience. This is what I think, but I can't speak for everybody else.
I just had Peter McCormick on the podcast, released last week, and he said the exact same thing because he obviously has that libel suit from Craig Wright. You know, the Craig Wright is in Satoshi thing. He was like, man, I would kill to live in the United States right now. He's like, because the libel laws and all of this stuff in the UK is sort of backwards. And, you know, he was like, his experience wouldn't have been the same if he had lived here where we have a true First Amendment and free speech. But when you live in America, maybe you don't realize that we do have it the best in that regard. I think that a lot of people, that's missed on people, but you really can say and do whatever you want here, which is a rare thing, I think, in the world. So I want to touch on something you said. It's interesting. You went to Oxford and you became a rapper. I went to the University of Pennsylvania and I became a DJ and a producer, and everybody thought I was nuts, right? They were like, you can go to Wall Street, make money, whatever. And instead I DJ'd at crappy bars in Philadelphia for $300 cash a night and tried to scrape it by. You know what I mean?
I hear you.
What gave you the empowerment, I guess, to say, you know, screw it, I'm doing this. I'm going to be me. I'm going to become a rapper. I'm throwing that all behind and I'm going to go for it.
Yeah, it's a great question. You know, a lot of that is just my personality type. I'm someone who doesn't really do things by half measures. You know, in the words of my sister, I'm a very binary individual. Either I do something and I do it properly, or I just don't do it. I don't like to dabble in things. You know, this goes with everything I do. If I say I'm going to write a book, boom, you know, next month the book is written. If I say I'm going to, you know, learn a language, I'm actually going to learn it. If I say I'm going to create something, I'll actually create it. So that's part of it. I've just always had that kind of mentality. Another part is that I'm not someone who is, you know, I don't care to fit in for the sake of fitting in. I don't go out of my way to be sort of contrarian on everything or to go against the grain. There's a lot of stuff that's considered normal, which I think is great and should be. But just because other people are around me, are doing something, doesn't mean I'm going to do it. I'm not very easily influenced by the herd. I've been like this always. So say during my teenage years, you know what I mean? I've never smoked a cigarette. I don't drink alcohol. I've never tried any sort of, you know, drug or anything. And I've never even felt pressured to. You know, I remember times in my teenage years or university years where lots of people around me were, you know, doing certain things or whatever. And I'm just like, nah, you know, that doesn't interest me. It's not me. And even when it comes to a lot of the thoughts and opinions and views and things or whatever I put out there, it's just very much my own independent thought. Some things will go with the majority opinion. Some things, sometimes I think the majority opinion is totally wrong, and I'll say it. I could be in a room of 100 people, and I could have a different opinion to the other 99, and I won't be afraid to say it in the way that most people would. So I think a lot of that is just personality. And then beyond that, I also know what my goal in life is, and I know I'm trying to have a very, very disproportionate impact on the world and on society compared to what most people's ambitions are. And I knew that there's no way I'm going to do that working for somebody else or working at a desk in a sort of any type of standard job. So that's why I knew I had to make that leap early. Well,
could you elaborate on that goal? Because sure. It's one of those things. It's there's very few people I think who aim that high. I think I'm one of them as well. I don't know if it's an ego thing or what it is. I can't really touch on it. I want to be remembered. You know, that was a big part of putting out music and doing those things. And I want to impact people's lives. I want them to, you know, I really think that I can do that. I think most people stay in their jobs and don't worry about that at all. So what is that bigger goal for you? What is that ambition?
Yeah, sure. So I want to have a positive impact, a clear positive impact and influence on over 10 million people. It used to be 1 million, and I think I've possibly done that already now.
Yeah, I think
so I've upped it to 10. In a couple of years it might be 100 million. But when I meet when my life is over, I want 10 million people or more to genuinely miss me and genuinely feel that I had some positive impact or influence on them through my words, through my actions, through my art, through things I create, etc. And to me, that just comes down to the desire to fulfill my potential, and to help other people. Like the world, everybody needs help in different ways, and there's so much negativity in the world, and I try to be a counterbalance to that, right? Even in the world of hip hop and music, as you know, there's so much negativity out there. There's so much messaging that, let's be real, isn't making things better for people or making young people sort of think better or act better, etc. So sure, I can't reach everybody, but I've been given a unique set of talents and skills and experiences. So to me, it's like my ethical duty to make the most of that. How far it can go, how high it can reach, I don't know. I know it's, millions of people. So it's my job daily to try to take steps forward in that regard. So that's where it sort of stems from for me.
Yeah, I have a feeling that number is going to be 100 million and billion, why not? So it's interesting though, because you've definitely hit the million. I mean, with 300,000 something followers on Twitter alone, you can actually quantify that, which is kind of interesting in this day and age. 20 years ago, you wouldn't have been able to sort of see what your reach was or if you accomplished that sort of goal. It's interesting. So I know you're a Kanye fan. And I've seen you talk about him a bit in the past, talking about my days early in Philly. So I used to DJ at a place called the 5 Spot in Philadelphia, and they had a party on Tuesday nights that was called Black Lily. And it was the Roots were the house band, and like Jill Scott and all these people. It was just like the local thing. DJ Jazzy Jeff was there, but they had a producer like competition, and Kanye showed up from New York. Like this is like 2000, 2001. Nice. Rolled in with his backpack, MPC, blew everyone's mind. So that was my first intro to Kanye. And then I have randomly had like this consulting marketing job at Rockefeller Records like a couple of years later. And I happened to be in the room when he was doing the art for the college dropout. Like he was basically just tearing apart the art they had done for the college dropout, I should say. So like I come from a place where like I respect his genius, but I really don't like him very much as a person. And so like I'm curious as to your feelings on him. I know that you think maybe he's been like abused by the culture to some degree, and he's also one of those people who obviously wants to impact everybody. I don't like the guy very much, like I said, and I think he's done some pretty awful takes, but maybe that comes with that level of genius. I don't know. So I'm curious your thoughts on him, because I know you've spoken openly about that.
Yeah, sure. No, I love Kanye, both musically, and I love his personality and what he adds to the cultural conversation as well. Does that mean I agree with every single thing he's ever said? No, I don't agree with anything anybody has said ever. There's no individual, including myself, where I agree with absolutely everything they say. Sometimes I say something and then I'm like, I wouldn't have said that in hindsight. So that's just humanity. But I think his voice is, I think it's not even just now. Like I've always thought his voice is so necessary. And there are just so many doors he's opened, which I don't even think he gets credit for. Right. I think that there are so many rappers nowadays who, Kanye was the blueprint. Kanye opened that door for so many people, both musically, but also culturally. And he's always been someone who, hasn't always gone with the herd. I mean, when Kanye blew up, that was sort of right in the sort of aftermath of the whole sort of 50 Cent G-Unit era, where it was very much, like gangster rap, right? It was, it was Dipset and G-Unit, and, everything was sort of thugged out and whatever. And then Kanye came along with songs like, All Falls Down and Jesus Walks. Never Let You Down. It's like he got a lot of criticism off that, right? I remember when he came out against homophobia in hip hop, and he was like, you know what, guys, like maybe we shouldn't be, throwing around the F word. Maybe we shouldn't be saying all this about people, etc. And he caught a ton of flack because that's very countercultural, right? And now I think sort of over time people have been like, oh yeah, that was that was ahead of his time, right? I remember when he made his statement about, George Bush doesn't care about black people in the aftermath of Katrina. And a lot of the people criticizing him now, loved him then. But, now that they found
they
it,
feel
okay.
like they feel like you're saying the opposite now. So I guess that's
exactly.
It's kind of, it takes a little cognitive dissonance to reconcile those two. But I see
exactly. But with me, I've been a Kanye fan all the way through, because I'm just like, look, that is someone who, and I think people don't read between the lines of what he's saying, like the amount of important stuff that he's saying and has been saying for years, and people take the dumbest version of it. And sure, he doesn't always articulate himself perfectly well, but if you understand the point that he's making and you look at the wider perspective of it, it resonates massively with me. And a lot of it is stuff I've been saying for decades, literally. Like since I was a teenager, some of the stuff he's saying, I've been like trying to hammer home to people, and I've never had the platform to do it. I've got a much bigger platform now than I did, but nowhere near Kanye's size. So a lot of the stuff he says, it's like, geez, thank you. Like somebody is saying this stuff out loud, and people are gonna try to say, I don't know, man. I think he's exposed a lot of stuff, man. He's really exposed a lot of stuff, and I love to see it personally.
So, I mean, you've said that, when you've defended him, you said that the culture itself is sick. I mean, yes. So what do you mean by that?
Oh gosh, where do I begin? I mean, it depends on which culture we're talking about here. Like, look, there are a lot of issues in many aspects of hip hop and rap culture, and there are issues in many aspects of, let me just say Black American culture. Okay. And he's clearly a representative of both parts of it. Some people don't like me talking about America because, I'm obviously not an American myself. So if I say something that they don't agree with, they try to dismiss it by saying, oh, well, you're not an American. But the truth is, sometimes it's better to analyze things objectively when you are not too close to them, right? And
sure.
Look, if you look, I love hip hop to death, man. I love hip hop culture. Like, I'm a rapper. But it is undeniable that there are some aspects of the culture and the messaging and some people's behaviors and stuff that gets encouraged, which is trash, which is garbage, right? And it's not helpful, and it's not conducive to helping people do better and flourish in society. It's not helpful for creating a positive image of, Black people in society, particularly Black males, right? Hip hop is the only genre where you can literally, I mean, look, if there was I've said this before, if there was a white rapper or an Asian rapper or a Jewish rapper, etc., who was like constantly making songs about killing people of their own race or of their own ethnicity, or selling them all drugs, or like doing this or doing that and disrespecting the woman, people would be like, this person is insane. Like, why is it, what's up? And it's funny that Eminem is the only person people can throw out there. But the thing is, Eminem talks about killing people in general, and he talks about it in a in his in a comedic sort of entertainment way, right? He's not
It's not real life experience. Yeah,
it's not. But people have become totally numb to Black rappers talking about killing other Black people, right? Black people are numb to it. White people are numb to it. Radio DJs are numb to it. Club DJs are numb to it. Like, some of the songs that blow up, I'm like, man, if a white artist made this song, this could be a KKK anthem.
Yeah, oh, for sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's like everyone's singing along to it, dancing. People don't even care. Like, no one even questions it. And then you see certain things that do happen in these societies, in these communities. I'm not saying I'm not in the music is the cause of it camp, right? I'm not saying that, just like video games aren't the cause for violence or certain behavior, etc. So I'm not in that camp, but to act like it doesn't have any sort of impact on, let's be real. One cool thing about hip hop is very good at trend setting and setting the bar for what is cool, right? If something is sort of cool in hip hop, it could be a dance, it can be a word, it can be a way of dressing, etc. We all know that hip hop permeates far beyond America. Like, hip hop has an impact in the UK. It has an impact all across Europe, in Asia, Japan, Africa, etc. Right? If something is considered cool in hip hop, then a lot of young people do look up to that and they aspire to it. So, and this goes beyond music, but just in sort of certain cultures, in certain places in general, a lot of what is propagated and what is considered cool is very, very self-destructive. And so I've been talking about this forever, right? And I'm happy that someone like Kanye West is unapologetic in bringing that out there. And it's hilarious. I mean, it's crazy. You will get criticized more for speaking out about the negative elements in the culture than you will get for propagating them. Okay? If I make a song...
For sure.
Yeah, exactly. If I make a song talking about, killing N-words and, disrespecting women and selling crack and taking Xanax and whatever, right? Not a lot of people are going to criticize me. It's just like, yeah, that's the culture. That's cool, whatever. But if I come out on a radio interview or something, or I make a song and I criticize that behavior, people are going to be the ones calling me the sellout, right? Calling me the coon, calling me the house Negro, etc., right? And it's like, what kind of culture is that? What kind of culture is that?
I guess the question then begs, like, why is it that way?
It's a great question.
Because, I mean, obviously, I think it started, talk about NWA, Ice-T, like really going back to the beginning of gangster rap. I mean, those were literally people that were using music to, to tell everybody what it was actually like in their lives. It was them displaying their life experience. And I think it was an important message regardless of how it was delivered. But I think that in the modern era, you have a lot of people that aren't actually living it, who are emulating it, and just because like it's to sell a record, right? I'm just going to talk about it. I mean, you even see a guy like Drake sometimes talking about that stuff. You're like, you know where Drake's from. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
So why is it still that way in that culture, do you think? Why is the negativity and the violence and all that, why do you think that is still what's perpetuated and popular?
It's a fantastic question. And I think a lot of it is supply and demand, A lot of times I get asked a lot, Zuby, why do you think, should the blame be on the rappers? Why do rappers make this kind of music, etc.? And I like to flip that question and think, man, like, why are people so drawn to it?
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
It's
like,
what's popular.
Why are people so interested in, and this goes far beyond hip hop, entertainment in general, music, video games, movies, TV shows. Why are we drawn to violence? Why are we drawn to gangster movies? Why are we drawn to, gratuitous sex or violent video games, etc.? I think that's a real interesting sort of human psychological question, because if there's demand for it, we all know if there's demand for something, people are going to supply it. So if I'm a young aspiring rapper and I've kind of, say I've got the option, or, say I'm not someone who's super principled, and I've got the option of, okay, I can make X type of music and have a bigger fan base and get more radio play and get played in the clubs, etc. Or I can make Y kind of music and sure, maybe I can build a career, but it's going to be harder. I'm going to get less support. I'll probably, people are going to say like I'm soft or I'm corny or whatever. But, you can't blame someone for picking X, right? Especially if they are coming from a background and a surrounding where that is sort of considered cool or considered trendy or whatever. So it's a very difficult problem to diagnose. And the reason I think it's important, like I said, is because it goes beyond music. It goes way beyond music. If it was just like this is purely in the entertainment realm and this has no impact in real life or what, I mean, how many rappers, like what's the most common cause of death of a rapper? Murder? Right? Is there any other genre of music where like the way people are typically dying is being murdered? No, it's not.
Culture is real. It's real.
Yeah, so so that's the thing. It's real. And it's like, what is going on here? Like, what's up with this, the propagation of it and the levels of hypocrisy? Because of course, if a rapper dies a tragic death, they get shot, something like that. Even other rappers are going to suddenly be like, oh, what happened? We need to do something about this. Like, we need to fix this. So what? Then they go back in the booth and the next song is talking about killing N-words again, And it's like this weird sickness that just needs to be mended. And I say this as someone who's kind of got like 1 foot in this world as a rapper, but also kind of 1 foot out of it as someone who didn't grow up in some of these areas and some of these regions. But as you've already alluded to, there are plenty of rappers who didn't. There are plenty of people who also didn't grow up in that environment, but they still make that kind of music and they still send out those messages, etc. And it's still considered cool. And so it's a weird one. Yeah, it's a weird one. And it's also strange because people use the term real a lot, and people use the term real really to mean sort of like street in many cases.
Yeah.
Even if it's not real. So you can have someone who's not from the street at all, or, you know, has never sold drugs, isn't part of a gang or whatever, but they rap about that and people are like, yeah, that's real, that's cool. And I'm like, no, that's not real. What does real mean? Right? I'm real because I don't rap about that stuff.
Right.
You know?
Right,
and
yeah.
I'm very open about my background. I'm open. I'm like, yeah,
Exactly.
I went to Oxford. I did this. I did that. I grew up in Saudi Arabia. I'm not a gangbanger. Right. I'm not trying to move my mom out the hood. I've never sold crack in my life. I've never smoked crack, and I'm not interested in it. So I'm being real by just portraying myself as myself. And again, coming back to like someone like Kanye, I feel like he sort of did that from the beginning. You know, he never tried to portray himself.
That's true.
As, you know, I am, you know, I'm from the hood. You know, and he was around, you know, guys like Jay-Z, Beanie Siegel, etc. But he never tried to portray himself as that, and he still doesn't. Even now, you know, regardless of what people think about his music, he's like, look, you know, I'm moving more towards the church and gospel, and, you know, I'm a Christian or whatever. And he's was making music about that now. And I'm like, awesome. A lot of people wouldn't have the balls to do it, you know? So whether or not someone agrees with everything, I'm just like, that's dope that you have someone who is that prominent, you know, that successful, that prominent, that respected, who is just totally willing to, you know what, everyone else is going this way. You know, there's nothing like, you know, less cool in the sort of street sense than just going and making like a whole gospel album called Jesus is King with, you know, rapping about Jesus on every song and, you know, not cursing and putting out these messages and whatever. And I'm just like, man, I'm glad that somebody is willing to do it, you know?
ROUNDLYX.com is one of my favorite companies in the entire crypto space. What they do is take all your small purchases and round them up to the nearest dollar and invest that spare change into any of over 30 crypto assets of your choice. They integrate with your favorite exchanges so that you can view various exchange balances all in one dashboard and round up into different assets all at the same time, and they do all this without ever holding any of your Bitcoin. This is by far the best way to dollar cost average into Bitcoin. Go to ROUNDLYX.com and use the promo code WOLF for $4 in free Bitcoin after making your first roundup or purchase. That's ROUNDLYX.com and code WOLF for $4 in free Bitcoin. Are you sick of paying ridiculous fees to trade crypto? It's time you try Voyager. It's hands down my favorite place to buy and trade crypto, and it's 100% commission free. Voyager gives you easy access to more than 30 top crypto assets, and you can instantly transfer cash from your bank account so you never miss a trading opportunity. Even better, you can now automatically earn interest on your crypto holdings. Currently, they're offering 5% interest on Bitcoin and 6% on USDC. Yes, you heard that correctly, 6%. And there are no limits or lockups, which means your funds always stay liquid. Find out why so many people are making the switch to Voyager. Visit investvoyager.com or search for Voyager on the iTunes or Google Play Store and get $25 in free Bitcoin when you use the promo code SCOTT25. That's investvoyager.com, promo code SCOTT25 for $25 in free Bitcoin and start trading today. Yeah, I guess somebody has to take the shot for everyone and actually have the balls to go that route. So I never thought about it that way, and I. You know, like I said, I respect his genius for sure, and I respect that he's willing to do whatever. Kind of like I said, I just don't like him that much, you know. But there's a lot of people that I respect that are not my favorite, so that makes sense. Yeah, sure. So all that said, who are your top 5 favorite rappers of all time?
Oh wow,
I know 5 is impossible for me, so it's an unfair question.
No, that's a fair question. Tech Nine, Eminem, right. Jay-Z, Nas, and. Probably Tupac.
Dang. No Biggie or Rakim, which are probably my top 2. But all of those would be in my top 7 or 8. I think I throw out, you got Tech Nine as kind of the left field dude. I like MF Doom in that role, maybe.
I think Biggie would be in my top 10. But you know, I think with some of it, it's maybe because he kind of just didn't have the chance to create as much of a body of work. So whereas I can, you know, there's tons of all the artists I mentioned, like there's tons and tons and tons of their music and their catalog that I've grown up with. With Biggie, it's like you kind of got two and a half albums. And so obviously he's a super dope rapper, but there just wasn't really the chance to have that. And Rakim's super dope. I actually saw him live last year. But there's not really like, there aren't multiple Rakim albums that I kind of like just listen to. It's a little bit before my time for it to be like.
Yeah, I'm in my 40s, so that was definitely what I came up on. And also, for me, it's more like you listen to him and you can see how much it impacted everyone else.
Absolutely.
Kind of like you can see that it was all being borrowed. I'm also like Tribe Called Quest, Black Thought. Like there's a couple that I just think really changed everything. And I definitely miss that era of positive hip hop, like the Native Tongues, De La Soul, Tribe Called Quest, Black Sheep. That's the stuff I grew up on. And I kind of wish that we could go back to that and it would be that way. And you are kind of doing that to some degree, right? Like you said.
Yeah, to a degree.
It's not, not as much cursing, definitely positivity. And I think that's really great. So where does Bitcoin fit in all of this for you? Besides on your t-shirt, obviously.
Yeah, that's a good question, man. So like I said, I'm a computer science graduate. So I've always been interested in technology and just kind of the future and the way the world is going. And I'm also a fairly libertarian minded person. So I want to say I first heard about Bitcoin like relatively early, but I didn't bother doing any research on it whatsoever until 2017. Like I thought it was just I thought it was like an in-game currency or just like a PayPal alternative or something. I never bothered to. No one explained it to me, and I never bothered to do the research. And then in 2017, I looked at it more properly, and it clicked for me really quickly. There are a lot of people out there who you can spend hours and hours explaining Bitcoin to them and they don't get it or they don't see the value proposition, etc. But in my case, it just clicked. I was like, oh, wow, okay, I can clearly see the use case for this. I can understand the value proposition. I can understand from both the tech perspective and a socio-political perspective and an investment perspective why this is something that I want to own and be involved in. So that's kind of how I got into Bitcoin. And then, 2017, of course, the market was pumping, gains were crazy. So, the greed factor kicked in and it was like, okay, initially sort of, oh, look at all this money being made. I want to make some quick money. So I kind of got in there, read a few books on the subject, etc. Then, took the whole beating over the 2018, 2019 period when the market downturned. But I didn't sell anything through the whole period. I just kept on topping up. And then so that's why I'm into Bitcoin. I just think given my age, I've seen the technological adoption of a lot of very major technologies in my relatively short lifetime. So from the internet in general, and then broadband, to mobile phones in general, and then smartphones in general, and then social media and the different social media platforms. Like I remember different points in my lifetime. I remember when people thought there wasn't much point in having an email address because it was like, well, no one else has an email address.
That was me. I showed up at college. They were like, what do you want your email address to be? It was 1995, and I literally didn't know what they were talking about.
Yeah.
I was like, what's an email address?
Yeah, so I remember that. I remember when, my sister was the only person in my family who had a mobile phone. And, it was like, oh, why do you need a mobile phone? Like, and then, it's crazy. The iPhone was only invented, 2006? That's not that long ago. And now, the idea of not even having a smartphone, if you don't have a smartphone now, you're sort of looked at as a weirdo. And then, so, I've seen this happen many, many times. And the way people talk about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency right now is extremely reminiscent of how people used to talk about phones and Facebook and the internet and email addresses, etc. And I think the use case, I actually use Bitcoin, right? Like I receive payments in it.
I use it every single day.
Yeah, I use it. And as someone who is, grown up very internationally and has a very sort of global perspective on things, and understands, like, I can just see the idea of having a non-governmental, deflationary, decentralized, unhackable currency. To me, the use case of that on multiple levels is quite self-evident. And a lot of the things that put people off Bitcoin, which are some of those things I mentioned, are the exact same things that I think attract a certain type of person to it, right? Because you'll have some people say, oh, but, no government controls it. And I'm like, Yes, perfect, right?
Yeah, like,
right,
really?
right. Yeah. I mean, look at right now. How many trillions has the U.S. government printed just this year, right? And what's that going to lead to? So the idea that you've got this currency which is limited in supply, and everyone can use it, whether they're in the UK or America or Nigeria or China or just parts of Asia, whatever. Everyone can use this thing without a middleman and can transact. If I wanted to send some money to like a cousin in Nigeria and I didn't want to get hit with huge like fees from PayPal or Western Union, etc., I could just, boom, I'll just send you some Bitcoin. They can use that. And then, of course, there's also the appeal of the, there's also the investment appeal as well. If this is something that's going to gain more and more mass adoption, then obviously by being an early adopter of it, there are significant advantages to that as well. So all of the above are reasons why I'm very bullish on Bitcoin.
I mean, I always laugh, especially in America, where like we probably have the most stable banking system, right? I mean, in America, if anywhere in the world you can trust your bank, it's probably here. But then I have friends who argue against using Bitcoin. I'm like, have you ever tried to get an international wire and like waited a week for your money to come in the United States? Now try going to, your family's from Nigeria, try going to Nigeria and getting money to Kenya. You know what I mean? Like it's basically impossible. So, to me, it's just like, it's such an obvious layup. But I think that now we're seeing, with all this crazy money printing and all that stuff, I do think that we're seeing a bit of a more like awakening towards the real use case. I mean, what do you think with everything that's happening now in context? Do you think that this is Bitcoin's moment? Like it's time to prove and shine?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think that I've been in it for about approaching 3 years now, but I think that with many things, I think there will be multiple waves of awakening, right? Like I think 2017 was a big one, when it spiked up to 20K, and that put it on the radar for a lot of people, right? And then, so I think most people now, probably most people in the UK and US have heard of Bitcoin now. Right. Prior to 2017, most people probably hadn't heard of it. I think now there's at least the awareness. Most people don't have it. Most people aren't invested. Most people couldn't describe what it is, but they've at least heard of it. Yeah. And I think, in the next sort of bull run, and when it cracks, I say it cracks 20K again, and you start getting all of the newspaper articles and you're seeing it in the mainstream, etc., that'll be like another wave, and then the market will probably downturn again. And then, each time there will be a sort of bigger adoption wave. And as the technology continues to improve and get faster and get cheaper, etc., I don't know what the time scale is on this, but I think there will be a stage and there will be a critical mass hit, on that adoption curve.
Tipping point.
Where, there will be a tipping point where it goes from being this very sort of fringe asset, an idea that's maybe adopted by 1 or 2% of the population, to, I don't know, that tipping point could be at 10%, it could be at 20%, but there will be a point where it's like, oh wow, okay, very quickly this goes from being something that just a few, nerds and geeks and investors and whatever are interested in, to something that's a lot more mainstream. And I think, it might also need to, I don't know, maybe, and there'll be some sort of killer use case along the way, or maybe some very large company, I don't know, Amazon, McDonald's, whatever, like they start accepting Bitcoin, or they sort of partner with some blockchain company or something, and that just leads to much bigger adoption and an understanding, something that the sort of layperson, someone's grandma can understand the use case of it just as well as a teenager can.
Well, all our grandmas and cousins were buying it because of us in 2017, but it wasn't for those reasons. It was because they thought they were going to get insanely rich really fast. It went badly, which was very damaging. But I do agree with you. I think you touched on the phone and the internet and all these things are like, you don't think about how those work. You don't think about what they do. You just use them. And I think that's, whether it's Bitcoin or not, I think that's going to be the truth with blockchain. You know what I mean? I think that the technology itself is going to kind of be behind everything. You're just not even going to think about how it works. You're just going to kind of, know maybe that it's there and hear whispers. Are you bullish on any other projects besides Bitcoin, or are you really just a Bitcoin guy?
I'm not a Bitcoin maximalist. I'm maximal-ish, but I think that there's probably, I definitely believe in Bitcoin itself. And I think that, Bitcoin is going to be Bitcoin. I think that there are plenty of other projects out there, Ethereum being the second obvious one, which still has a lot of room for growth and a potential use case. And then lots of other, to be honest, I think anything in the top 100 right now, at least on a relatively short term, is probably going to go up in terms of monetary value, because it looks like we're in a fairly bullish phase and might be for the next 12 to 18 months, hopefully. We will see.
It could go.
Yeah, it could go. And, we could hit that sort of trillion plus market cap. But yeah, I think sort of 98% of projects I don't think are going to do anything particularly useful in the long term. I don't know how many cryptos are out there, 3,000 or something now. I don't think most of them are gonna
There'll be a grand culling where we lose 99% of them, I'm sure.
Yeah, but I don't think
the
that's
internet boom in the late 90s. I think it'll be very similar.
Yeah, but I don't think that's going to happen just yet. I think there's still quite a lot of playtime for people who are into their trading and just sort of getting their ridiculous multipliers and stuff. Yeah, I think that's going to continue for at least several more years. But I think super long term, I think Bitcoin is going to remain the king and stay at the top and just keep getting better and better. But yeah, I think that there are other projects that in their own way, shape, or form are going to have some positive long-term impact as well.
Yeah, I agree with all that. So you're a life coach too, and you do one-on-one training. So if I was a client coming to you today, where do we start?
Oh, where do we start, man? It would be starting on what your goal is. What are you trying to achieve, and how can I help you to achieve it?
All right, so I want to be a billionaire and I want to touch 10 million people. Let's go.
Okay, I'd actually start with a why and get a deep understanding of why you want to be a billionaire and why you want to impact all those people. And then from there, I would normally go through different aspects of people's lives and see which areas they have the most room for improvement in. That's the way I generally operate. The way I do my coaching is very much based on what the individual needs. So rather than me sort of sitting there and trying to give a lecture or a lesson on what I think I should be telling them, it's more like, okay, let's sit down and see how can I best help you to reach what you're really trying to do.
Interesting though, you want to touch 10 million people, but you're willing to take the time to talk to one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? So it seems like there's a bit of a bipolarity there, but how do you have the time to focus on individuals and how, care enough to actually impact, that one person's life?
Well, that's a great question. I think there's two parts to that. I think number one is I care a lot about depth, not just width. So sure, 10 million is a very wide number. That's a big number of people to reach. And this is something I really learned through my music, especially as an independent artist. It was never for me just about maximizing the number of people who hear my music or see my stuff, but actually, I've got, 500,000 followers on my social media, but I don't treat that as one blob of 500,000. To me, that's 500,000 one-to-one relationships. And that's how I view it. And I think that's really how you have a significant impact on people. And I also think that, look, if I can help one person significantly individually, then they can go on and impact hundreds or thousands or millions of people. So it's also part of the program, right? A lot of people have everybody has their own potential. So by helping other people reach their own potential, it sort of ripples outwards. So, I've never even thought if it's I want to impact 10 million people 100% directly, or, right. indirectly it might be 100 million or a billion because of the network effect.
And like you just said, if one of the people that you coach becomes someone who influences 10 million people, then by proxy, you have influenced their 10 million people on top of, it's interesting. So I've done CrossFit for years. I love Olympic lifting, and I see obviously that that's a big part of what you do. So because of COVID, I basically hadn't lifted a thing in 4 or 5 months. I finally got my hands on a bar. I went to squat yesterday, and my legs locked up at like 95 pounds. I'm like 80% off my top. So this is what you do, right, man? Help me. How do I get back to any semblance of what I previously was? Because I'm in my 40s, and it's like, you know, you actually tweeted about it recently. You were like, in your 20s, somebody's told you, wait till you're 30, and your 30s, wait till you're 40. And I feel that same way too, because I'm just not stopping, you know what I mean? But like, my body is not the same as it was 20 years ago. Like, so, you know, how do you address like that fall off for someone in fitness when they take a huge break?
Yeah, I mean, I think the same thing happened with me. Like, leg strength in particular has taken a hit over the past couple months because I haven't been able to, like, I've been able to maintain my upper body with, like, you know, pull-up variations and push-up variations and whatever. I haven't lost too much strength. But yeah, lower body, I've been training it, but it's hard to replicate squats and deadlifts. So, you know, firstly, it'll come back. Like, muscle memory is a very, very real thing. And most strength losses, just like most strength gains in the short term, most strength losses in the short term are they're neurological rather than muscular. Right. So you probably haven't lost much muscle at all, but your body is just not used to firing off those muscles at maximum
mobility
capacity.
Too. I mean, a huge part of it is like, I just can't get there. You know what I mean? It's not even about if I'm going to get the weight back up. It's if I'm going to even get down.
So it comes back. It comes back a lot quicker the second or third time around. So, you know, I tell people, look, the same way you built it is the same way you'll rebuild it, but it'll just happen. It'll happen quicker. And it's frustrating, you know, like, most of us are there. You know, I mean, I was squatting 2 days ago or yesterday, and everything just felt like 40% heavier than usual. And it's annoying. It's frustrating because I know what my strength used to be. And so I don't like going backwards, but, you know, don't do anything drastic. Just stick with the program. And I mean,
95 pounds felt like 250 pounds would have felt. I'm not even like, the thing is, I wish I was exaggerating, but I'm not. I mean, it's really, I think it's just incredible how fast it falls apart. You know?
It comes back so fast though as well.
Yeah. So, well, that's good to hear that I have I've come back from things when I was younger, injuries and stuff like that rather quickly. But like, it's just, I'm at this point in my life where I'm like, maybe I should just run, man, ride a bike, you know, like just skip it and not do it at all. So I want to talk about the music business a little bit. Like, I definitely had all of the like sort of stereotypical bad experiences, like doing beats, not getting paid, like having, you know, like, I got sued for copyright issues because like my core was sort of sampling and all those things. Have you had any of those sort of like the big obvious obstacles and barriers in your music career doing it independently?
That's a good question, man. I've actually managed to evade a lot of them because I've done it independently. Like, I don't really operate inside the music industry, and I never have. Like, I'm not really part of the music industry. It's never particularly embraced me, and I've never particularly embraced it. From the very beginning, when I put out my first CD, I was like, you know, I'm just going to do this thing myself, and I'm going to focus on the fans. You know, whether you're independent, major, signed, unsigned, whatever, the fans are the lifeblood of any artist, anyone, any creative. It all comes down to the fan base. So I'm fortunate that that clicked for me early. And I was inspired by a lot of rappers, you know, who had built up their stuff independently even before they got signed. Guys like Too Short, Ludacris, Slim Thug, Master P, Cash Money, like all these people who I'd seen. And it was like, Cash Money, okay. Man. Yeah, like they've built up their thing and they just own that. So I took that blueprint and I was like, okay, I want to do it that way. It's going to be slower. It's going to be harder, but I can maintain my creative control, financial control, business control. I don't need to answer to anybody. And I've kind of been doing that for so long now after 8 albums and EPs that it's kind of like, I used to get people asking, like, oh, like, you know, would you want to sign to a label or whatever? And it's not even on my radar. Like, I don't even think about it. No, it hasn't been on my radar for over a decade. I'm just like, no, I just do my thing. And I have my audience. I have people who like me. And they're willing to buy stuff, whether I release a hat or a T-shirt or a CD or whatever. I've got an audience who's willing to buy it. I can reach them. I can make music videos. I can get my stuff on all the platforms. So
important.
Yeah, and you know, and
people
financially,
don't understand that.
Yeah,
they don't.
yeah.
But it's
So
not just music. It's not just in music, man. It's true of any, like you said, to any content creator. I learned this really early too. I mean, record deals used to make sense for artists 20 years ago.
Yeah.
But then when it started to become like these 360 deals that people might not be familiar with, but where they, you know, they want your show, they want a part of your touring, they want a part of music, because obviously they weren't selling CDs anymore and streams are effectively like a loss leader, right? Mm-hmm. But I always approached my music and everything that I've done exactly how you're talking about, which is like, if you can get 500, 1,000 people who really, really like super fans, I would call them, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like your super fans who will do exactly what you said, buy everything you do. They'll consume all of your content. They really believe in you. That's a core for a lifetime of earnings and business, and way more than someone who has like hundreds of thousands of fans, but is locked into a terrible contract with a label and is basically like working and to be bankrupt. Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, I don't like the idea of being held hostage in any way, shape, or form. This includes being held hostage by your own fan base. Yeah. And that is part of why, and I'm grateful for this, it's why I'm happy that like I'm just authentic. Because I always get people now like asking me if I'm worried about getting canceled. And I'm like, I can't be canceled because my audience isn't that type of audience. My audience stands against cancellation. They stand against deplatforming. They already know, like I'm pretty open with what I think, and I have been for a couple of years now. So look, not everybody likes it, not everybody agrees, but even a lot of people in my audience, like what unites my audience partly is just like free thinking and willingness to be very open-minded and agree to disagree and whatever. So my audience isn't all just like one block of, you know, whether this is down the lines of, I mean, I've got like major fans who don't even like hip hop.
Right. It's
right?
like you.
Yeah, they like me, or they like my podcast, or they like just the way I think or whatever. And then I've got people who like, you know, they very much might disagree with some of my political opinions, or like, you know, I'm a Christian. They might be like a firm atheist or whatever, but I respect them. They respect me. I'm kind to people. I don't go out of my way to like upset, you know, I don't go out of my way to upset people or insult people or target people or harass people or whatever. So through all of that, it just means I've got like I've got an audience and a fan base that I genuinely like, and who genuinely like me and respect me, and they're not kind of there waiting for me to say the wrong thing, or like I can talk about almost anything.
Yeah, you can.
And it's cool because a lot of people can't do that, and I do get people. It's funny, over the past 2 years, I've sort of become this magnet for people who are in lots of different industries, whether it's music or tech or acting or the literary world, education, who are constantly DMing and emailing me because they feel like they're being held hostage. They feel like they're being silenced. Coaching. They're worried about getting canceled, etc. And so they're now contacting me saying like, you know, like actually, I see how you navigate this. How can I do this, or how do you do that, or how do you deal with this issue, etc. So
what's the answer? Yeah, they might lose their job if you tell them to do what you do. You know what I mean? So
yeah, it's a tricky one, and you know, I encourage people, number one, to have courage. Right? I think a lot of the problems, I think so many problems stem from dishonesty and cowardice. And I don't think this is unique to right now. I think like all throughout human history, so many problems just stem from dishonesty and or cowardice. So people simply not being willing to tell the truth or be authentic. This goes for the media. This goes for politicians. This goes for individuals, right? So much stuff is just rooted in lies. And then also people not willing to stand up for what they know to be right or what they believe to be true, right?
Because they want to be accepted. I mean, do you think it's basically like truth is dead because people don't care about the truth? They just care about consensus, right? I mean, they just want everybody to agree. And
yeah, we live in the age of the narrative, and it's difficult. You know, human beings naturally want to be accepted, and that makes sense. So it's very difficult to go against the narrative. If 90% of people, or even 70% of people think one thing, no matter what it is, and you don't think it's right, or you may in some cases even know it's not right, it's very difficult to go against that and to stand for what is correct. And you can see some really extreme examples of this, of course, throughout history.
Yeah, sure.
But there are also ones, on a daily basis, which are a lot more mild. And oftentimes it doesn't even need to, you could even have a majority opinion, and even the majority opinion can be difficult to voice because you have a small percentage of people who are just very, very intolerant or aggressive towards anyone who doesn't think the way they do. And, we're seeing this happening all across society right now. And no one wants to be the person who kind of steps up and gets their head on the chopping block sort of thing.
Right.
But when you do that, the problem to constantly kowtowing to that, beyond the fact that it kind of like depletes your own soul, is that actually it just exacerbates the problem, right? So with this whole cancel culture thing, the only reason cancel culture works is because of cowardice. If there were no cowardice, if people weren't cowards, cancel culture wouldn't work, right? It's cowardice from companies. It's cowardice from just individuals. It's cowardice from, because people are like, oh, what if I get, like, I don't know, someone tells a joke on Twitter and they get fired. And it's like, look, that's cowardice on their employer's part, right? And it's cowardice on their colleague's part. It's like, look, if someone hasn't done something that is super egregious or criminal or, genuinely, sure, some stuff is legitimately awful, right? You should get canceled for certain things. Yeah. But if it's just like, oh, Scott, you tweeted something 7 years ago, which is like, which is a little bit un-PC. So we now want to and it's just like, come on, that's ridiculous.
Also, people evolve, and there's so much punishment because of social media and that everything's out there. But to be held accountable for slightly questionable ideas you might have had 10 years ago that you've probably evolved on is so absurd.
It is.
And dangerous because you can't put as they say, you can't put the shit back in the horse, right? So once you've said it and it's out there, it's impossible. That's interesting. I think it's a really important, you said 2 words on Twitter, right? Okay, dude. They tried to cancel you. Really, right?
Yeah, that's literally what happened. Yeah. I got temporarily suspended for, someone boasted that they sleep with more women than I do. And I just said, okay, dude. And a week later, my account was temporarily suspended for hateful conduct.
Okay, so then knowing that, and so no matter what you do, there is a risk of deplatforming. And I talked to Pomp about this. I've talked to a lot of people. When you have a certain level of following, whatever, you kind of need to find a secondary way to interact with those people. Basically get them off Twitter, right? I don't know if it's getting their email address, getting them to their website. Yeah. I was part of that Twitter hack, and it was terrifying because I was like, man, what if these people never find me again? You know what I mean? Or I lose my audience, my people. So how do you, having gone through that and actually had the violation, how do you make sure that those hundreds of thousands of people can find you if you are deplatformed from platforms? Yeah,
well, I use a lot of other platforms. So I'm also on Parlay. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. I'm on YouTube. Right. I'm on minds.com. So, and I've got, Twitter is my biggest following, but I've got 200,000 across the other platforms. Yeah. So, I can be found. I have an email list as well. I need to push it even harder than I do, but I do have an email list. So look, I don't want to lose my account. Of course not.
Yeah, of course.
But, and I play within the rules. I don't violate the rules. Okay, dude, what didn't violate the rules? I don't violate the rules. But it's good to just know that, we're always on a shaky foundation. This goes back to MySpace days, right? I used to have 30,000 followers on MySpace.
MySpace was the greatest social media innovation in the history of mankind, and I will die on that hill. I will die on that hill. MySpace was the greatest. Oh.
MySpace was dope, man. Nothing really totally matches it. And I built my MySpace up to 30,000 people, and then it died a very quick death. So from that point on, I realized, okay, I need to always make sure that I've got multiple platforms and ways of reaching people. And look, I don't want to lose any of them, but let me not be sort of totally caught with my pants down, so that if any one of them, disappeared somehow or became just unpopular in the future, then I can still reach people. And I don't think there's any sort of 100% perfect fail-safe way of doing it, but the best you can do is to at least consider it and have some type of backups, not put all your eggs in one basket.
There are a lot of really scared TikTokers right now.
Exactly. Great example.
I mean, people who probably make millions of dollars because of that platform who are afraid it's going to be banned. So I know we're up against it here. So give you a chance to shill your book, tell people where to find you, tell us what you got, what we should look forward to in the future and where they can definitely keep up with you.
Yeah, sure thing. So in the future, you can just expect a lot more. I'm going to start working on my next album soon. I want to put out a new album in 2021. It's been a while since I released like a whole bunch of brand new music, and I've got a lot of ideas. So that's on the music front. My podcast, Real Talk with Zuby, comes out every Friday, so that's going to continue. My book, Strong Advice, Zuby's Guide to Fitness for Everybody, is available as an ebook, on paperback, and also on audiobook. You can get that as well as my music and merchandise at teamzuby.com. And if you want to listen to my music, then you can find me on all platforms, Spotify, Apple Music, Tidal, Google Play, Amazon, all of them. Just search my name, Zuby, Z-U-B-Y, and you can find me.
I got like 1,000 old beats from like 2007 to 2014. You can have them. They're all terrible at this point, but send them out, put out an album. I haven't done anything in years. Well, man, thank you very much for taking the time. I think it's inspiring and important that, there are voices like yours who are unapologetic and who will really tell the truth come hell or high water. So thank you for that. And definitely have to do this again. I look forward to keeping up with you in the future.
I appreciate it, Scott. You have a good one.
All right. Thank you.
Let's go.